The first domestic vacuum cleaner was produced in 1905 by Walter Griffiths. Although it had many of the same features that you would recognise from today's vacuums, like a flexible hose with multiple swappable nozzles, these machines were actually mechanical and required the operator to hand crank a vacuum bellow. It was not long after the domestic vacuum's initial introduction to market that in 1908, James M. Spangler had the ingenious idea of providing suction via an electric fan. Although ingenious as it was, the vacuum remained a luxury item until after World War II. Today, they are an item found in every home and are often able to be purchased for less than the price of a new video game. In 1913, primitive domestic home refrigerators first hit the market in the form of modified ceramic ice boxes, and as early as 1918 we started to see something that resembled the modern fridge of today, with the Frigidaire, a self-contained electric fridge with the compressor unit built into the bottom. Even though 3 companies in the US had introduced electric stoves in 1908, penetration was rare due to the price of electricity. An electric stove was still considered a novelty in the 1920s, although by the 1930s they began to see a much greater market acceptance. Europe's first domestic dishwasher with an electric motor was invented and manufactured by Miele in 1929. The first automatic washing machine was brought to the domestic market in 1937 by Bendix Home Appliances, a subsidiary of Avco. And a year later in 1938, the electric clothes dryer hit the market. The microwave oven was actually a much later invention. Based on technology discovered during the radar research of World War II, most early microwave ovens were giant industrial units. As late as 1971, only about 1% of households had a microwave oven. It wasn't until the mid-80s that the small kitchen appliance we're so used to seeing now started to become commonplace in US households. Also commonplace now are microfiber towels, cloths and cleaning mitts, which you might be surprised to discover only hit the domestic market in the 1990s. And the steam mop, which seems to make up the bulk of today's midday infomercials, has only been with us for the last 15 years, first hitting the domestic consumer market in 2004. That brings us to the inevitable question of the modern day. Are stay-at-home wives useless? Or do they provide some kind of benefit? Is there a real, legitimate reason that justifies the existence of the housewife? 100 years ago, maybe 120, before domestic fridges, when meals had to be cooked on wood-burning stoves, clothes and dishes both took hours to wash by hand, and there were no vacuum cleaners or electric steam mops, sure. Back then, a housewife served a legitimate domestic function. I still wouldn't say it was comparable to a 12-hour day of dangerous manual labour, but for the sake of argument, sure. 100 years ago, the stay-at-home wife served some purpose. Today, not a fucking chance. Today we are living in a world where even the grocery shopping can be done online and delivered right to your front door for a price that ranges from $11 all the way down to free of charge depending on the size of your order. I am a bachelor. I work a 40-hour week. I come home from work and I cook and I clean for myself. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that I can cook better than any wife you put me up against. The very idea that a housewife is a real, legitimate job and contributes an equal value to the relationship and the domestic household in this day and age is beyond fucking laughable. Right now, I am actually earning slightly less than the average Australian wage. But my wage gap. And yet, on my single income, almost average wage, I am able to own a 3-bedroom house with 2 motorcycles in the garage and a car parked in the driveway. I mean, let's just consider the numbers and see what is hypothetically possible. My 40-hour-a-week job on an average Australian income currently pays all of my overheads: mortgage, electricity, vehicle insurance, Netflix subscription, everything. Hypothetically, if I was married and there was a woman living here, a mystical unicorn woman that did actually contribute her fair share, all of those household living costs, which are completely covered by me now on an average wage, could effectively be cut in half and shared between us. Based on the average Australian wage, we could both be working 20 hours a week and still maintain the same domestic quality of life that I am currently living? Well, actually, there are some consumable costs to an additional person living in the household. You know, maybe an extra $100 a week for things like food and toilet paper and what have you. I'll ignore that this additional $100 would be more than covered by the fact that cutting our hours in half would individually put us both into a lower taxable threshold. For the sake of this argument, I will add a few extra hours. So let's round it out and say that together we could both be working 24 hours a week and maintain the exact same quality of life that I am currently living. At 8 hours a day, that is only a 3-day work week to maintain the same quality of life I currently have now working 5 days a week. Even if you had kids, you know, the ever-present trad cuck justification for sponsoring the stay-at-home wife, the parenting responsibilities could easily be shared. The father could work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The mother could work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, with the kids going to group daycare once a week. If a woman was actually genuinely your equal partner in a relationship, then even on an average Australian wage, the addition of her equal contribution should objectively leave you much, much better off than you are currently living. If she actually put in her fair share, you could almost halve your weekly workload without sacrificing any standards of living, even with the burden of raising children. And yet, despite this, for some reason, I still have more money and more free leisure time to play video games, watch movies, catch up for drinks with friends and ride motorcycles than any of my married friends do, especially those with a stay-at-home wife. You see, many of these guys end up having to work way more than 40 hours a week to support the family. In fact, one article I read stated that in Australia, men who support a stay-at-home wife were working 51 hours a week. Not 51 hours a week maximum, but 51 hours a week on average. That is 8.5 hours a day, 6 days a week average. And then these poor guys on their 1 day off a week still have to do all the shit jobs around the house that their wife considers too hard. Mowing the lawn, washing the car, fixing the gutters, repainting the baby's room, whatever. If the workload was shared equally, 24 and 24 is 48 hours a week total. That is only 3 hours shy of what the average Australian man works trying to support a stay-at-home wife. And again, that 48 hours is going to leverage much lower taxes because both individual incomes will fall to a lower ATO tax bracket, meaning that despite the 3 hours a week difference, it will still be more in terms of real disposable income. With tiered marginal tax brackets, you would be $8,000 a year better off equally splitting the workload, even though you're collectively working 3 hours a week less. These numbers are clear as day, so why aren't more married couples coming to this arrangement of equal shared responsibility? Okay, let's just cut the shit. We all know exactly why, it's just uncouth to actually say it out loud. To any married men who are listening, just imagine how much better off your life would be if your wife wasn't such a lazy, useless, freeloading piece of shit. I know that sounds harsh, but the modern automation of domestic duties and these average wage working hours speak for themselves. Do not give me this shit about the need for stay-at-home wives. The numbers don't even add up. Unless you are doing a leisurely 3-day work week and sharing equal time with the kids, I don't want to hear about how men and women are equal partners who complement each other. It's fucking bullshit. Listen up, guys, and listen good. There is no nice way to say this, but if you honestly believe housewives or stay-at-home mothers are useful or necessary in this day and age, then you are a fucking stooge. You are a sucker. You have been sold a lemon. You've been duped. You've been lied to. You've been hoodwinked. You've bought the baloney hook, line, and sinker. The supposed need for housewives is a straight up fucking scam. And that is not a metaphor. It is actually a legitimate scam. You are being ripped off. You are working 51 hours a week and still ending up with less money in your pocket than if you were working half that time. And now you're trying to sell other men on the same bullshit traditionalist pyramid scheme that you've bought into? Stop it. Just stop. Your housewife scam is as obvious to me as emails about a Nigerian princess. You know where that kind of crap ultimately leads you? I have a friend who's a doctor. He earns over